Hey guys, tonight we drift along the banks of the Nile under a velvet black sky, where the stars shimmer just slightly too bright, like they're whispering old secrets. There's a warm breeze carrying hints of lotus and whetstone. You're lying in a boat carved from acacia wood, lanterns flickering on both sides as gentle water laps against the hull. Somewhere, a frog chirps. Somewhere else, a priest chants softly to the moon. This is Egypt, not the dusty museum version, but the living, breathing, mysterious soul of it. And tonight, we're not here to solve riddles or crack tomb codes. We're here to feel what they felt, to follow the rhythms of the ancient spirit world as it swirled through temples and fields and households like incense smoke. Just warning you though, you probably won't survive this. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. So here's the deal. To ancient Egyptians, the Nile wasn't just a river, it was the river. It ran through their myths, their calendars, their bones. It flowed north, which messed with everyone's sense of direction. But the Egyptians just rolled with it. They didn't need compass points. They had Ma'at, the principle of cosmic balance. When the Nile flooded predictably each year, it wasn't just good for crops. It was proof that the universe still worked, that the gods hadn't abandoned them, that life in all its messy weirdness was still in rhythm. You see, they didn't separate the natural world from the spiritual one. The river was a god. The sky was a goddess. The land itself had personality. Even chaos had a name, Isfet, and it lurked constantly, waiting for people to forget their rituals or slack off on their offerings, which honestly sounds a lot like modern social media algorithms. Life and death weren't opposites in Egyptian thought. They were a cycle. Rebirth was the point of everything. They looked at the sun and saw it die every night, sinking into the underworld, only to be reborn at dawn. That's not a poetic metaphor. That was cosmology. They believed the sun god Ra took a nightly boat ride through the Duat, the Egyptian underworld, battling a chaos snake named Apophis. Every single night. It was like a cosmic horror movie on repeat, and Ra always won, just barely, just enough. And every morning the people rose with him. Now imagine you're a farmer in a small village. Thousands of years ago, you wake up with the sun, literally grateful that it's still there. You walk to the edge of the Nile, kneel in the silt, and offer a prayer to Hapi, god of the inundation. You whisper thanks for the fertile mud that keeps your barley alive. You don't hope for blessings, you negotiate for them. You promise to honor the cycles, to keep your home clean, to respect your ancestors. Because breaking that spiritual contract, that's not just bad luck, it's existential sabotage. Even their calendar was a ritual. 3 seasons: Akhet, flood; Pere, planting; Shemu, harvest. Everything moved in rhythm with the river, and that rhythm was divine. Priests observed the stars, especially Sirius, Sopdet to the Egyptians, which rose just before the annual flood. That little twinkle was like a celestial Google Calendar alert. Hey, your crops are about to get blessed. Maybe prep the granaries. Now here's the quirky part. They believed the Nile had 2 sources, one physical, in the faraway south, and one spiritual, in the heavens. So when the river rose, it wasn't just water, it was starlight too. Liquid from the cosmos, bringing life to the earth. That's more than irrigation. That's magic. They even had river gods who literally personified this connection. The god Hapi was often shown with big belly rolls and blue skin, kind of like a joyful fertility uncle who watered your lawn and blessed your baby. Gender fluid, cheerful, and absolutely central to survival. But if you think this was all gentle gratitude, think again. The river could kill. Crocodiles, waterborne illness, flash floods. And yet it wasn't evil. Danger was just part of the divine package. Sort of like when your phone battery dies at 2%, right before a big text. You're mad, but you know deep down, it's your fault for not charging it overnight. Rituals sprang up to honor every phase of the river cycle. The annual Opet festival in Thebes celebrated the flooding, by parading the gods' statues down the river. Imagine massive golden shrines on boats, priests chanting, people cheering from the banks, and musicians banging sistrums and drums like their souls depended on it, which they believed they did. You didn't just watch religion happen in ancient Egypt. You danced in it. You cried in it. You wore eyeliner and wigs and linen skirts and chanted in languages only the dead fully understood. And speaking of the dead, oh, they loved the river too. Tombs were often placed on the west bank, where the sun died, so the journey into the afterlife mirrored the sun god's descent. They believed the soul had to cross waters, sail with Ra, and be reborn. Everything echoed. Everything flowed. There's something comforting about it, right? A worldview where the mess and mud and uncertainty of life wasn't just chaos, it was sacred pattern. You weren't drifting, you were being carried. And as long as you honored the current, remembered the names, and offered your thanks, you'd stay afloat. Even today, people visit the Nile and say they feel something. A hum, a stillness, as if the river remembers them, as if it never forgot. The temples weren't just buildings, they were engines, machines for harmony, batteries for the cosmos. You walked into one and the air changed, thickened, got cooler somehow. The walls rose high above your head, carved with symbols you didn't need to read to understand. Gods mid-sentence, kings kneeling, stars swirling in tight formation. It smelled like sandstone and myrrh and something older than language. And the priests, not just robe-wearing decorators. They were technicians of divine balance. Morning to night, they operated the temple like a cosmic lab. First light, open the shrine, bathe the god statue, dress it, feed it, light incense, whisper the right name at the right moment with the right intonation. Mess it up and you risked tipping the universe out of tune. And they didn't sleep in those temples, by the way. Nope, too sacred, too intense. You honored the gods by leaving at night, giving them space. Like roommates with very specific boundaries. Most temples were aligned astronomically. Doors and pillars built to catch the sunrise on just the right day. Think Karnak, where the morning sun shoots down the axis during the solstice, like it's punching through time. Imagine waking to that. Historians still argue whether these alignments were practical or purely symbolic. Probably both. The Egyptians were overachievers when it came to symbolism. And no, temples weren't open to the public. Sorry. You didn't just walk in and chill by the lotus pool. Access was tiered, layers of purity. You'd have to be ritually cleansed, know the chants, wear the linen, carry the offerings, and basically be part of the cosmic HR department. But people didn't feel excluded. They participated from the periphery, with music, with parades, with awe. Think of it like a really intense concert where only the band gets backstage access, but the crowd still sways with every note. Each temple honored specific deities, and those deities weren't just ideas, they were personalities. Some cranky, some maternal, some delightfully weird. Take Thoth, god of wisdom and writing, with the head of an ibis and a voice like endless parchment. He was believed to have written the laws of the universe, like literally penned reality into existence. Then there's Hathor, goddess of love and music, whose temples rang with sistrums and laughter. But the big one, the CEO of the pantheon, was Amun-Ra, especially at Karnak. His statue was paraded out during Opet to visit his wife Mut and their son Khonsu. A divine family reunion. People wept when they saw it, not because they were scared, because they felt it in their chest, the presence of order. Let's talk about Mahat again, because she shows up everywhere. She wasn't just an idea of balance, she was a goddess. Feather on her head, sometimes shown as the feather. When your heart was weighed in the afterlife, it was against her. Too heavy with sin? Crocodile, lion, hippo, beast eats it. Balance wasn't optional, it was destiny. Temple rituals weren't creative expression, they were cosmic maintenance. You don't improvise when the universe is watching. Imagine a priest fumbling the chant and suddenly there's a locust swarm. Okay, maybe not instant doom, but still, you wanted to nail it. And some temples were terrifying. The Serapeum, for example, underground vaults where massive black granite sarcophagi held the Apis bulls, sacred animals believed to house living gods. Picture flickering torchlight, tight corridors, the smell of ancient dust and divine presence. You don't sprint through that, you tread soft and listen. Quirky fact time. Some temples had sound traps, architectural acoustics designed to whisper back. Priests knew exactly where to stand, so their voices echoed like the gods themselves were responding. Imagine that in a dark corridor. You ask a question, the stone answers. And of course, rituals weren't just for worship, they were for the state. The pharaoh was the high priest of every temple, even if he never visited most of them. His image was carved offering eternal bread and incense, because as long as the image existed, the ritual continued. That's some next-level automation. People contributed to this machinery too. They brought bread, beer, flowers, perfume. Every little gift mattered. And in return, they believed the gods sustained the order of the world, the rising sun, the growing grain, the breathing lungs. You don't take that lightly, you bow. But temples weren't just engines of worship. They were vaults of knowledge. They housed libraries, schools, laboratories, even observatories. The temple at Edfu had sacred texts etched into the walls so they'd never be lost. Permanent syllabus. And you thought your school was intense. There's something mesmerizing about the idea of a building humming with sacred logic. Everything placed just so. Every column a prayer. Every shadow calculated. And you know what? Even after the gods fell silent and the temples crumbled, people kept showing up. Pilgrims still walk the ruined causeways. Tourists weep at Luxor, as if the blueprint of the divine is still etched in the stone, waiting, like maybe, just maybe, Mayat never really left. So let's talk about the gods, and not just any gods, but the ones with falcon heads, jackal snouts, and sun discs on their skulls. You know the ones. You've seen them in museums and mummy movies, painted on tomb walls or guarding sarcophagi. They're unforgettable and kind of stylish. But these weren't just funky artistic choices. Every animal-headed deity had a purpose, a logic, a role in maintaining the cosmos. Take Anubis, for instance, jackal-headed god of embalming and the afterlife. Why a jackal? Because jackals hung around cemeteries. That's it. You don't forget the guardian of the dead when he looks like the thing prowling just outside the torchlight. Egyptians weren't scared of these animals. They respected them, elevated them, wrapped them in myth. Then there's Horus, the falcon-headed sky god, eyes sharp as eternity, wings wide enough to span kingdoms, his right eye, the sun, his left, the moon. Lose one, and you lose balance. Horus lost his eye battling Set, the god of chaos, and it was restored. That eye became a symbol of healing, called the Wedjat. People still wear it today like cosmic insurance. Historians debate whether this was medical symbolism or spiritual metaphor. Maybe both. Either way, it worked, and it looked awesome. Let's not skip Bastet either, the cat-headed goddess of home, fertility, and protection. Worshipped so fervently that when the Persians marched into Egypt, they brought cats, knowing the Egyptians wouldn't risk harming them. That's dedication. Also a genius military move. Bastet was a blend of purr and claws, loving but fiercely protective. A divine mama cat. And Re, oh Re, sun god, father of gods. Falcon-headed too, but with a solar disk blazing above. He sailed across the sky every day in a bark, or solar boat, then plunged into the underworld at night, battling chaos serpents like Apophis. Imagine having to fight a world-ending snake every single night just so dawn could happen. Makes you appreciate your alarm clock, huh? Ra was sometimes merged with Amun to form Amun-Ra, an even bigger divine upgrade. And these weren't just theological shuffles. They reflected political realities. As cities rose to power, their gods rose too. Religion and state were braided tighter than linen wraps around a mummy. Speaking of serpents, have you met Wadjet, cobra goddess of Lower Egypt? That little cobra on Pharaoh's crown? That's her, not just an accessory. She spat fire at enemies. Literal divine flame defense system, fashion and function. The gods weren't perfect either. Set, the god of deserts and chaos, murdered his brother Osiris. But he was still worshipped, especially by soldiers. Why? Because sometimes you need chaos, need a wild card. Set rode with Ra in the underworld to help fight Apophis. Even the bad guys had jobs in this pantheon. And Osiris, now there's a story. Killed, dismembered, reassembled by his wife Isis, who, by the way, was the blueprint for every loyal, magical woman in mythology. Osiris then ruled the underworld, green-skinned for rebirth, wrapped like a mummy, sitting on a throne of eternal judgment. People prayed to him for resurrection, not metaphorically, literally. You wanted to be reborn like him. He'd been through it and came back with a crown. Fringe fact, Isis had a massive following outside Egypt. Even the Romans loved her. Her cult spread across the empire, outlasting many of the old gods. She was that iconic. Some say she laid the groundwork for future mother goddess figures. Think Mary, but with a wand. One of the most surprising things? The gods weren't remote. They weren't chilling on a cloud somewhere. They were here, in statues, in sacred animals, in dreams. Egyptians believed the gods could speak through oracles, signs, or even illnesses. Got a weird rash? Maybe it's Sekhmet, lioness goddess of plagues, asking for a better offering. Temples kept sacred animals, literal living representations of gods. The Apis bull, for example, was pampered like a divine celebrity. When it died, a national funeral, buried in a sarcophagus that probably weighed more than your house. Some gods shifted over time. Sobek, the crocodile god, started off as a terrifying river monster, but eventually became a protective force. Crocodiles were kept in temple pools, fed treats, and adorned with jewels. Yes, really, jeweled crocodiles. Egypt didn't do anything halfway, and the mythology? It was a loop, not a line. Gods died, came back, fused, unfused. It wasn't contradiction, it was completeness. Life wasn't static, neither were the gods. One last fun twist, pharaohs were gods in training, living Horus, dead Osiris. The king wasn't just a ruler, he was part of the divine machinery. Wearing the crown meant joining the myth, no pressure. So when you picture these animal-headed deities, don't think cartoon, think code. Each one a living symbol, a layer of meaning, a cosmic tool, like icons on a divine operating system. Because in ancient Egypt, gods weren't just worshipped, they were understood. You can't talk about ancient Egypt without talking about death, or rather what comes after. Because while most of us dread death like a final exam we didn't study for, the Egyptians treated it like graduation, a big ceremony, a sacred departure. You didn't just die, you traveled, you ascended. Or if things went sideways, you got eaten by a crocodile, lion, hippo demon. But let's not jump ahead. First, the tomb. More than a resting place, it was a launch pad, built not for comfort, but for eternity. Inside, food, clothes, furniture, games, perfume, even little models of servants called shabtis. They were your afterlife assistants, ready to do the boring chores. Laundry, handled. Fields of reeds to harvest, they got you. The rich had real rooms carved underground, walls inked with spells and blue-skinned gods. The poor, sometimes just a pit, but even that came with amulets and a hope for eternity. Because everyone, rich or not, wanted the same thing, to get past the weighing of the heart. Let me paint the scene. After death, your soul floats into the Hall of Maat. Anubis, still rocking that jackal head, gently lifts your heart onto the golden scale. On the other side, a feather, not just any feather, the feather of truth. If your heart's heavier, weighed down with lies and selfishness, sorry, game over. Amut, that crocodile lion hippo combo we mentioned, gets to snack on your soul forever. Yum. But if the scale balances, Osiris welcomes you into the field of reeds, a kind of divine paradise, like Egypt but better. No taxes, no sandstorms, just sunny fields, cool water, and endless time to, well, exist peacefully. Farmers kept farming, bakers kept baking. Eternity wasn't about lounging, it was about living well, forever. So how did Egyptians prepare for this cosmic judgment? With texts, lots of them. The pyramid texts came first, etched into stone deep inside pyramids of the Old Kingdom. Then came the coffin texts, inked inside wooden sarcophagi during the Middle Kingdom. Finally, the Book of the Dead, the best known of them all. Think of it like an afterlife manual, a collection of 200-ish spells with names like Spell for Not Dying Again and Spell for Turning into a Lotus. Some were practical. Spell for Not Having Your Head Cut Off is pretty self-explanatory. Others were weirdly poetic. I have not stolen, I have not gossiped. I have not urinated in the sacred lake. Yep, that's a real one. It was like checking off a cosmic to-do list, except the stakes were your soul. Fringe fact? Copies of the Book of the Dead weren't one-size-fits-all. Wealthy families commissioned personalized versions, complete with tailored illustrations, papyrus scrolls longer than a city bus, full of gold, monsters, and radiant gods. Some scrolls were buried with the dead, others were recited during rituals. Historians debate whether these texts were read aloud during burial or just tucked away as magical insurance. Either way, they mattered. A lot. Let's not forget the role of mummification. Yes, it's creepy, but also genius. Egyptians believed your soul had multiple parts. The Ka, your life force, the Bai, your personality, often shown as a bird with a human head, and the AKH, your radiant, transformed self. For these to function post-death, your body had to be preserved. If not, your soul got lost. No GPS, no rebirth. So out came the natron salt. 40 days of drying, organs removed and stored in jars, each protected by a specific deity. Lungs? That's Hapi, the baboon-headed guardian. Stomach? Dumutef, jackal head. The heart was usually left inside for the big weigh-in later, but in some dynasties it was removed too, leading to, let's say, some complications in the afterlife. Hopefully the spell book helped. Then there was the golden mask, not just bling. It was believed to help the soul recognize its body, to say nothing of the psychological effect of having your face replaced with solid gold. Flex of the millennium. And those giant pyramids, mostly tombs for pharaohs, yes, but also giant prayers in stone. Their angled sides pointed toward the stars, specifically the imperishable stars that never set. Translation, immortality built into geometry. Tombs were often sealed with curses, not to harm, but to warn. Do not disturb this tomb. The gods will punish. And guess what? Some modern archaeologists got spooked when a few who entered tombs died soon after. Spoiler, probably not magic, probably mold, but still spooky. One more gem, the opening of the mouth ceremony, a ritual where a priest touched the mummy's mouth with special tools, reenacting the moment of rebirth. The idea? So the dead could speak, breathe, eat again, talk about thorough. By the time of the New Kingdom, Egyptian tombs had grown more elaborate, more secret. The Valley of the Kings became the new royal graveyard. Hidden tombs, deep corridors, booby traps. And yet tomb robbing was rampant. Even priests got in on it, rewrapping royal mummies to protect them, and sometimes taking a few souvenirs. But even in chaos, the obsession with eternity endured. Because for the Egyptians, life wasn't a straight line. It was a circle. Birth, death, rebirth, again and again, wrapped like a mummy, sealed in spells, waiting for the sun god to rise once more. Sunak. It's strange, isn't it? How a civilization that lived more than 3,000 years ago still echoes through our lives today. That's Egypt. That's the legacy. You don't need to believe in sun gods or talk to your cat like it's Bastet, though honestly, your cat would love that. But the spiritual architecture of ancient Egypt, their way of weaving the sacred into everything, still lingers in the dust of our habits, in the quiet parts of our minds. Start with symbols. The Eye of Horus? You've probably seen it dangling from necklaces or tattooed behind ears. But for the ancients, it was more than fashion. It was protection, healing, wholeness. They called it Wedjat, and they believed its shape mirrored fractions, each part representing a portion of health restored after Horus lost his eye in battle. Basically, it was the OG health bar. Then there's the Ankh. Looks like a cross with a loop on top, right? To the Egyptians, it meant life. Not just life now, but life eternal. Pharaohs clutched it like a cosmic USB stick, downloading immortality from the gods. It appeared in art, in tombs, in dreams. Even now, it pops up in pop culture like a sacred cameo. Movies, comics, incense packaging. The symbol lived on. You'll also find echoes in rituals that persist today. The practice of honoring the dead with candles, flowers, offerings. Classic Egypt. They believed that keeping a name spoken kept the spirit alive. Some families still whisper names at graves or set up photos with food and incense, not realizing they're reenacting ancient rites. Historians debate how much of our modern funeral customs borrow directly from Egypt or arrive by parallel evolution. But when you're standing beside a grave, candle flickering, soft prayers in the air, it's hard not to feel the echo. Fringe fact: there are modern spiritual movements, Kemetism for example, that actively revive ancient Egyptian religious practice. Followers light incense to Ra, read hymns to Isis, offer bread and beer in quiet devotion. Some do it alone, others in online communities, building altars between Wi-Fi routers and window plants. Sacred meets suburban. And let's talk architecture for a second. Obelisks, you'll find them outside churches and parks, even smack in the middle of Washington, D.C. Seriously, the Washington Monument is a 5 foot tall hey there to ancient Egypt. Their original function? Pillars of light. Solid beams connecting earth to sky, thought to house the sun god's power. That's right, your city tour just got metaphysical. Even the modern fascination with astrology owes a debt to the Egyptian sky watchers. Though the Greeks refined the zodiac, it was Egyptian priests who cataloged celestial patterns and associated them with divine timing. Their temples aligned with solstices, their rituals danced to the rhythm of Sirius rising. And remember that thing they had about balance? Ma'at, the principle of harmony, justice, truth. Still useful, still beautiful. They didn't expect perfection, they expected alignment. And when life went off kilter, plague, drought, family drama, they didn't scream into the void, they restored Ma'at. Through action, offering, ritual, through humility. Now think about your own life, that quiet breath before you start something important, the way you light a candle on your birthday, the instinct to create a tiny altar, photos, trinkets, dried flowers, on a dresser or a dashboard. That's not random. That's a sacred mindset echoing through millennia. Even the idea of karma, though not originally Egyptian, finds cousinhood in their belief that your actions shaped your afterlife. Be kind, be generous, live with truth. Otherwise, your heart ends up in a monster's lunchbox. Hard pass, shock twist. Some scholars think Egyptian spirituality influenced early Christianity. The image of a dying and rising god, Osiris did it first. The sacred meal. Egyptians had ritual feasting to commune with the divine. The monastic life of silence and devotion, echoes of priesthood. It's not a copy-paste situation, but threads are there, woven across time. But maybe the most powerful legacy isn't the gods or the texts or the monuments. It's the way they taught us to look at the world, not as a random pile of stuff, but as a system of meaning, a pattern, a rhythm, a place where everything matters, where your actions ripple, your words carry weight, and even silence can be holy. When Egyptians stepped into sacred space, they didn't say, "I believe in this." They acted, they bowed, they lit incense, they poured water. Belief wasn't something you had, it was something you did. That's a lesson still worth learning. So if tonight you feel the pull of something deeper, something older, it might just be the ancient Nile flowing through your subconscious. Or maybe it's your own sense of the sacred knocking gently. Let it in. Let's let the sands settle now. The torches are dim. The ankh slips gently from your hand. The gods, distant but watchful, fade into the silence of stars. You've walked the sunlit courts of Karnak, followed the carved prayers deep into tombs, and listened to hearts balanced against feathers. All that sacred rhythm, stilled now, like a boat finally docked after a long, echoing journey down the Nile. Let your breath move slower. Let the muscles behind your eyes soften. Picture the Nile at night, moonlight silvering the reeds, a single ibis stepping along the edge. No rush, just the slow, ancient pace of water. Maybe you still see a flicker of the golden mask. Maybe you hear faint chanting or the clink of incense burners in some timeless temple. That's all right. Let them linger. Let the quiet wrap around you like linen, gentle and snug. Like the afterlife wasn't some far-off fantasy, but simply a place of rest, of being remembered, of peace. Even now, in this modern world of glowing screens and tangled thoughts, there's space for stillness, for old wisdom, for a sacred pause. You are safe. You are part of something ancient and vast, something that has watched stars rise and fall, that has carried souls through deserts and dreams, something that waits patiently, like Osiris beneath the soil, like Ra behind the horizon, until you are ready. So close your eyes, feel the hush of the room, the quiet weight of your blanket. No more rituals. No more names to remember, just this. You've wandered far tonight, through temples and time. Now, let it all go. Let the river carry you. Let the